Hi you guys, so today I decided I was going to turn this denim dress into a denim jumper dress. I have been wanting one of these denim jumper dresses for I can't even tell you how long. I found this denim dress at my local thrift store for $6. It was a size extra large and I had to take it down to a size small. So this is what I normally do is I'll lay the item on the floor and make sure there's no stains on it, decide where I want to cut it, which is what I'm doing there, and then just kind of show you guys the basic outline. So making it short, cutting off the sleeves, taking it in a little bit, and taking off the neckline. So first things first, we've got to cut off that collar because that was not the look I was going for. I was going more for an overalls look. Didn't really want the collar kind of neck on there, so I just cut that off. The next thing I decided was that I actually wanted to keep this pocket, but if I were to just cut the sides, I'd cut straight through the pocket. So here I am taking a seam ripper and taking the pocket off carefully so as not to rip any holes in the dress or through the pocket so that I can use it later and reattach it. So here I've decided to cut off the sleeves of the dress, and I'm going to use those later for the straps on the overall part on the back. So I'm trying to keep these in one piece as much as possible. So I'm just cutting as close to the inside of the sleeve as I can so that I can keep the length on those for later. So you can't tell, but throughout this video I was very nervous to make this dress because I required a lot of cutting stuff off, and so I was very nervous doing all of these cuts because I was afraid I was going to mess something up. But in this part I'm cutting off the very top shoulder part of the dress because I did want this to have more of an overall look, and so I had to get rid of this top part, and I was really nervous about this because I was going to have to go buy a new one if I messed this up. So in order to get the look I wanted, I decided to lay this other jumper dress that I had already made on top of the new one that I was making so I could get it the length I wanted and the same shape, so that way they would just look the way I wanted it to, and it actually worked out pretty well. The length actually ended up being a little too long and I ended up cutting it later, and then for the top part I just cut around the old dress to make it into the new one. So at this point I decided to take the big back piece off. I wanted it to have an open back with the overall crisscross on the back as well. So I decided to seam rip this back piece, and if you use a seam ripper, it just makes it look better instead of just trying to cut it. It just gives it a more even look. So I just took that off with the seam ripper. And with that back piece taken off, I moved on to the top overall front piece, where I was just folding it down so that I could sew it and make it look a little more professional looking, so there were no ragged edges and things like that. I pinned all the way around the sides and on the top, and then was going to sew down the sides so that way it looks, like I said, more professional, no ragged edges. And then I also decided to sew up the sides at the same time just to make it all one smooth, even process. And as you can see here, I'm pinning it so that I evenly sew everything together. Otherwise it keeps falling apart and it's very hard to sew if you don't have pins. So at this point I had actually already cut the straps, but I'd forgotten to show you. So here's what I did. I just took the longest part of the strap of the old sleeve and cut the new strap out of that, and then just sewed those raw edges together so it would make the back part. And then I attached them to the back, and as well as the pocket, and then also hemmed the bottom. I also did pin these before I did that, so that way they stayed in place, and that way it would just make it a little easier for me to sew everything together. I also decided to make the edges straight instead of curved like they had a sleeve on them before, because I thought it looked a little bit better. Then I made a mistake and ended up having to cut the back again and adding a little extra fabric. I also sewed the pocket on and didn't like that, so I had to take it off and reattach that as well. And then I did finish sewing my straps together, and this is me just deciding where to place them and deciding if I actually liked them or not. Okay, and then once again we have the before dress. I really liked how this turned out. It did take me quite a bit longer than I thought it was going to. I was only expecting to spend about a day on this, which is what I normally spend on my projects, and this one took 2 or 3 days. I did keep the original buttons and waistline, and it did cost me $6 from my local thrift store to make this. Here's the before and the after. I love how this dress turned out. I really like the back, how there's crisscross, and you can't really tell I had to add a piece, and then also a close-up of the buttons and the pocket there. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. Be sure to subscribe and like for more videos.